Before we begin, the name is placed on the top right side of the screen. In a situation where her life is all but forfeit, a young girl lets go of her last resort and tries to run away from the terrifying voice, threatening her because she dared to defy the voice. The girl, in her white dress that is stained with blood, looks for a way out with escape on her mind and fear on her face. She reaches the edge of the boat and finds herself on a fast-flowing river in the middle of a forest. With nowhere to go, the girl stares at the relentless waves with a hopeless expression, as she knows that only death awaits her, even if she jumps in the water. Though, realizing that the voice that gets nearer by the second is cursed with an endless life, she backs up towards the edge of the boat, preparing herself to fall off, as anything is better than living the cruel fate she finds herself in. She loosens the grip and embraces the fall to her demise, but as she closes her eyes due to accepting her end, the girl misses a bright light that shines underneath her, as she wishes for a way to defy this life that was already decided for her. 6 months later, the same girl is somehow alive and well, sitting in front of a café cardinal, as a maid called Lorna for the Duke Clavante's household, waiting for the heroine to finally make her long-awaited appearance. As she sits there waiting patiently, though to no avail, Lorna thinks about how she was a 27-year-old, healthy, young adult in South Korea named Won Yoon-jae, but 6 months ago, she was somehow taken into this romance fantasy novel, which she only skimmed read through. The name of the novel is The Blind Beast's Flower, and she can confirm this to be true because she works for the protagonist of this story, the Duke Elaine Clevant, who was once the Empire's greatest knight, a great swordsman who won every war he fought in, a man blessed with immense strength. He goes by a lot of different descriptions, even though the main one is him being the Order of the Red Eyes. But now he is known as the Blind Beast, as he was poisoned by a deadly poison in a war 2 years ago, and so he quit his life as a warrior. But his eyes can be cured by using the flower that blooms in his very backyard, once every 10 years for only 10 days. And so the heroine Karina, for whom Lorna is waiting for, is supposed to come and use that flower to cure his eyes, which is when the Duke Elaine Clevant will propose to her for curing his eyes, and they both will get married. Lorna's role in all of this is to help the two of them meet without changing the actual events of the story, and if all of it happens in the correct way, she will be sent back to her original world. Though the problem is that she only read the novel's start and end, so that is the only thing she knows about the original events, and so she is now at a loss about what to do exactly, since her position is to help the two main characters. One embarrassing detail she remembers is that she is supposed to be behind the two main characters when they are having a romantic scene, and so she will be told by the Duke Elaine to leave when the heroine Karina complains embarrassingly about people watching their public display of affection. She snaps back to reality after being lost in thought for a while, and looks around the crowd to find Karina, but it has now been a week since she was originally supposed to show up, and Lorna worries that the flower has already been bloomed for 7 days now. She knows that Elaine is supposed to come back from the palace anytime now, and her leaving without telling him will be found out, and she will be scolded by her blind master because she is his only attendant. So she wonders if it is better to stick around for a while longer. She decides that she cannot wait for him any longer, and goes inside the cafe to book a table for two, but ends up asking the receptionist about a young lady with shiny silver hair and green eyes, though the receptionist tells her that it is not likely for them to find someone that meets that description, though it might be possible to find someone like Lorna, indicating that a lot of ladies look like, which makes her slip out the fact that they are in a romance fantasy novel, after all. She realizes what she said, and tries to change the topic in a hurry, while the receptionist asks her if they really are in one. While she tries to tell the receptionist otherwise, a bald-headed man in the cafe also notices that the ladies do, in fact, look the same, and points to a wanted poster of Alicia Uter, who has the same golden hair and purple eyes like Lorna, and is needed back at the temple unharmed. Lorna gets out of the cafe with another failed attempt at finding Karina, but while she is disappointed by the results of her effort, She is surrounded by the same bald-headed guy and his friend, who stops her in her tracks, grabs her hand and raises it up to find her to look exactly like the poster. She does not understand what is going on right now, and struggles to get free from their capture. But the men hold her and threaten her that they were told to not harm her, so she should come with them quietly to the temple. This makes Lorna fear for her life, and so she starts to scream, when a man in a noble uniform comes from behind them, and shoves the bald-headed man onto the ground with one hand. The other man screams at the noble man to stop him from stealing Lorna, but the man grabs her gently and hugs her, telling the kidnapper that he is being rude to the lady. The kidnapper notices the noble man's eyes and figures out that he is blind, so in a weird confident way, tells the man to back off as he is unable to do anything because he is disabled. The bald-headed guy gets up and gives a choice to the noble man to leave the girl and go, or he is going to get hurt, but that threat does not faze the man even a bit, whilst Lorna feels a little scared even though she is in his arms. She berries turns towards the noble man, telling him to watch out as the kidnappers are rushing him. But the noble man, who turns out to be the Duke Elaine Clevant, knocks them out cold with ease, and comments on how much worse they are than even a blind man. Lorna is shocked that Elaine is capable of such a feat even when he is blind, and then he questions her about why she left him at the cafe, only to be found in such a situation. She tries to refuse the accusations that she left him, and so he reminds her that they were supposed to meet for tea after G returned from the palace, and not at his mansion, so he had to come all the out here to find her, which makes her feel guilty, and she apologizes for her mistake. Though she recovers, and holds him accountable to be handling kidnappers like these so roughly, acting all informal when he is a duke. But Elaine just brushes it off as it made sense to him that this was the right way. After that, they both reach the cafe which Lorna was sitting at before, as she was the one who suggested it to him for tea, and so they both decide to finally sit down over it, which makes Lorna feel delightful, though not because she get to have tea with him, but because she has been trying to get him to come here so he is finally able to meet with Karina, but that still does not happen. They both order the same coffee and chocolates on Lorna's preferences, and then she talks about how his time was at the palace, while he answers her that it was the emperor who summoned him to the palace for something urgent. Lorna stares at Elaine's face and realizes how handsome he actually is, as she has seen him in his uniform for the first time, which suits him quite well. However, her thoughts about his appearance turn into absolute horror when he mentions that THR Emperor told him to get married, seeing how he is the appropriate age now. She asks him again if the Emperor was actually talking about him, so he confirms it by saying that the Emperor is worried that there is no one to take care of the ducal house after Elaine. Lorna asks him with a concerned look about who he is going to marry, to which he replies with no one on mind, so the Emperor will choose a young and lady for him, which makes her get up from the seat as she slams her hands onto the table, calling this turn of events absurd. Being surprised by Lorna's strong dislike of the idea of him getting married to a random young lady picked by the Emperor, he questions her about why she thinks that is absurd, to which she replies with determination that he should think about such a thing more seriously, because he had to spend the rest of his life with the person he marries, and so he should do it with someone he has feelings for, because marriages are supposed to be out of love. Though her thoughts are merely derived from the fact that she wants him to marry Karina, like the original novel. But while Elaine does not think too much of it, she tells him that marrying someone he does not love is really sad, still thinking about how she only does not want this because she has to go back to her world. Though she understands that anyone would want to marry Elaine, but he thinks that he will be a burden in his marriage partner as he is blind. But as he feels the gazes of plenty women in the crowd around them, Lorna tries to reassure him that what he thinks is not true, and that she will find him a good person who would willingly marry him. He stops her from trying to make him feel good as he knows that people are looking at the blind man, him, and so he expresses his regrets about having tea at such an open place, though Lorna immediately cuts him off by saying that the stairs are for her as she stands out too much in this crowd. Elaine gets puzzled to hear that how come Lorna is the one who is unique out of the two. So she makes up a lie about how she has red hair, blue eyes, and dark skin, and her facial features are very different as well, though she is just using the Korean flag as reference. Elaine does not get what she means by the Korean flag, but is convinced that she really might be unique, based on how she described her unusual appearance. Elaine makes a request about wanting to touch her face, which she is worried about as he might figure out she is lying about her appearance, because blind people get all their other senses enhanced when they lose their sight. Though she has to let him touch her face because she cannot just refuse a request from someone who has hired her. Plus, he must be more curious since he cannot actually see, but his stare makes it seem like he actually knows she is lying. She leans forward and allows him to touch it, so he removes his pitch black glove from his hand and moves it towards her face, but because he is unable to pinpoint its location, Lorna grabs it and places it on her cheek, and then he gently caresses her face to understand her face's distinctive features, but all she can think about is how cold his hands feel. As he is done with feeling her face, he moves his hand away and admits that Lorna really has an unique face, with a genuine smile on his face, while she slowly opens her eyes in a sad way, because of what she understood from his cold hands. Once again, after opening her eyes to stare at such a handsome man in front of her, Lorna blushes so hard that she has to turn away from a blind man to hide her embarrassment, which is when Elaine asks her to describe the looks of the place they are currently at. She starts with the cafe tables, telling him that the tables are the same as they are in the Duke's kitchen, but leaves out their circular shape, and there are curtains with laces on the windows, though she does not mention how they do not look white anymore because of how dirty they are. And then she mentions the beautiful sunlight passing through the blue clouds in the sky, which is the complete opposite of the fiery red sky in actuality. Elaine finds all of this to be quite nice, to which she cheerfully agrees to, but she regrets lying to him because they are currently at a place where all of the common people come, so he might not like it here, though she only brought him here to get him to meet Karina, who used to live in the outer city with her parents, whom she suddenly lost. And then she was adopted by one of her wealthy relatives who brought her to the capital. But then she struggled to fit in the upper class, which led to her roaming about aimlessly, and supposedly ending up at the Café Cardinal. Though then she was supposed to be saved by Elaine, who left the Duke's house for the first time since losing his eyesight, when she got stopped by some kidnappers. These events would have led to the two of them becoming friends, and when Karina finally enters his house, she discovers the flower that would help bring back his eyesight. But that never happened, as all of this was supposed to happen right at the time Lorna and Elaine are enjoying their tea. She sits at the table with her head in her hands, because she is worried that the flower will be gone in 2 days, which is when Elaine asks her about what her name actually means. She gets flustered as she reminds him that she has already told him about how she does not have any memories of the past, making her wonder about its meaning as well. But this is also just another nervous lie. The story of how she got the name Lorna is quite a long one, as it starts from the time she got dragged into this novel. As she lays unconscious on the ground, an old couple calls out to her until she finally, slowly opens her eyes. As her vision starts to clear up, Lorna wonders where she has ended up in, while the old couple is glad that she woke up quite easily, and it is not something serious to worry about, especially because she was covered in blood. The old lady sees her appearance and assumes that Lorna is from a noble family, and asks if she is okay, but when Lorna replies to them, asking if she can borrow their phone, while she sits up and finds her balance, the old lady does not understand what she means by a phone, which is when Lorna realized that she is not in her world anymore. And then she got that memory which told her that all she needs to go back to her world is to see the original ending of the novel. And so she decided to spend her life in this world for the time being, but by some stroke of luck, ended up getting a job as a maid in the house of Duke Elaine Clevant by applying for it through an agency. As she stood there, shocked that she actually is in the novel, the person from the agency tells her that this is the only job she can get, because she cannot confirm her identity, And since all of the maids in the Duke's house have run away being scared off by the blind Duke, this is the only job left for her. Though it is fine as long as the pay is good, and she has not actually witnessed the bad treatment. The man asks for her name as she is holding up the line, so that was when she decided to be called a very generic romance fantasy novel name, Lorna. Then, on the first day she went to the Duke Elaine Cleven's house. She found him living his life without a single hope, because even the Empire's greatest knight like him, who originally thought that his sense will help him hunt his prey, if not his eyesight, was not able to accept the fact that his honor as the greatest knight has been thrown into the gutter, because of some extreme poison. He was in the weakest state of his life, completely depressed, and living without any will. The maids were really scared of him in their early days as the maids, as even when they nervously brought him his clothes, they would find him standing alone and lifeless in his room, as he orders them to leave them and go. However, Lorna was nothing like them, since she would enter his room not once, not twice, but more than 4 times to clean his room with a cheerful smile on her face, and organized it, brightened it by opening the curtains to let the sunlight in. She would spoon-feed him the hot soup by blowing on it, and try to get him to open up little by little, as she would compliment the soup being good. Knowing how Elaine got out of his miserable life by facing Lorna's enthusiasm, since she never left him after just one encounter with his bad side, finally got him to crack a genuine smile as he returned her kindness by complimenting the soup she fed him. He would then practice to walk with a stick on the tiled floor of his house, sometimes using Lorna's shoulder as a leverage to walk. But that is why he is now able to stand up on his own and walk, someone who almost gave up on his life. After spending exactly 6 months in the Duke's house, Lorna found Elaine to be spending a life like a proper human, with the two of them being closer than ever. Finally, in present time, they both reach the Duke's house after they have had the cup of tea together, and Lorna gets Elaine to his room, leaving to make dinner for him as today's outing might have been tiring for him. Meanwhile, Elaine himself closes the door behind him, and leans on it, and expresses his disappointment at another day where he failed to make Lorna show interest in him as someone other than her employer. Elaine thinks back on why he has his hopes up about Lorna thinking of him as someone more than just her employer. She had mentioned the Café Cardinal to him a few times during her work hours, and have told him about how much of a famous place it was for him to not know of it. Though she ends the topic by telling him that the Deacon will be here soon to report for work, and that she will help him to get there, while he is left thinking about the cafe. Later, he asks the head of servants in the house of Duke Elaine Clevent, Bernard, about the Café Cardinal, who thinks about it for a moment, and then tells him that it is a place where couples go, so it does not seem like a place for Elaine to go to. Though when Bernard asks him about why he knows of such a place, Elaine refuses to answer him about it, which upsets Bernard as he finds it too rude that Elaine does not care about other people's feeling, while he continues to refuse and changes the topic. He then tells Bernard to just get on with the work, so he gives up on his complaining and ready out the message that arrived for Elaine this month. While he is busy thinking about why Lorna would mention, to him, a place where lovers meet, and does she really want to go there with him, making him feel a little hopeful about finally being recognized by Lorna as her lover. Though, in present time, he holds his face in disappointment over his foolish thinking, as he assumes that Lorna will never fall in love with someone like him, because she probably does not understand how he had to live through life. And so the views of the two of them are completely different. He thinks back on TBE moment she grabbed his hand to let him feel her face, and grips it tightly in regret as he was the one who raised his expectations unnecessarily, only to be disappointed. However, out comes his mouth an unexpected revelation, that he reveals that Lorna not loving him back is totally a normal reaction, seeing how he is other blind but lies to her, ever since she came to his house as a maid. Later, when she finishes preparing the dinner, she brings it over in a trolley to his room, and knocks on his door that it is ready. He grants her the permission to enter, and asks about what the menu is for dinner tonight, so she plays a game of guess what with him. hinting that she made something he really likes, which he instantly answers correctly as he smells the sausages and spices presented on the plate in front of him. As she ties a handkerchief around his neck, she excitedly tells him that he guessed correctly, as the item is grilled sausages, and then proceeds to spoon-feed him, warning him that it will be hot so he should eat carefully. During dinner, Lorna lets out a very prominent sigh, disappointed that she was unable to meet with Karina yet again, and did not even receive a response to the letter she sent him a while ago, which had a very direct approach in inviting Karina to the Café Cardinal, though she lets out another sigh as she understands that no one, including her in this dire situation, would actually reply to such suspicious letters out of nowhere. As her gloomy mood and constant heavy breaths are felt by Elaine, he questions her about if she is being disturbed by something, while he wipes his face with a napkin, and offers her to tell him anything she wants, since she has expressed her disappointment more than usual today. She immediately refuses that anything is wrong with her, and apologizes for making him feel tense about absolute nothing, as she is only troubled with personal matters, covering up the fact that she is an outsider and knows about the story, while also frustrated at the fact that she is so tense that she is making her employer feel tense. Though this just gets Elaine more down than he already was, making her think that he has been sad ever since they returned from the cafe. She asks him if there is something wrong with him, so he asks her if she likes going to the Café Cardinal, to which she agrees to without thinking much of it. But then he follows up with another question about how she does not seem excited to have been there, and that she seems distracted for some reason. She gets worried about how easily he can see through her, so she tells him that it is only because it was her first time going out in THR Capital, and it was a while later that she got to go out in the public, as she was spending most of her time in the care of the Duke. He gets convinced by her answer, and then asks her about the atmosphere outside the capital, so she tells him that it is a completely different world from where they are right now, as she had to find the way to the capital all alone, while following a very rocky and difficult path. Plus, delighted to witness such beautiful-looking people in the capital, she tells him that she found so many wonderful people here, which leaves him speechless out of shock, for some reason. He gets up and suggests that they walk around outside to digest the dinner they just had. But she first makes sure if he is tired, so he reassures her that he will manage. Walking around in the gardens of the Duke Elaine Clevant's mansion, Lorna comments on how bright and big the moon looks at night, and finds the yellow sunflowers to be as big as the palm of a person's hand as they take a stroll. Elaine tells her that it is the kind of flower that blooms under moonlight, and that his mother likes it the most, which she finds to be true as the moonlight truly is sharp tonight. She looks around and finds that the blue flower that is going to fix his eyesight is still blooming, so she puts on a smile of relief as she is glad that Elaine can still be cured, and bows down to the flower, wishing for it to wait a few more days. Elaine realizes that she has not been talking out loud and comments how she must like the silence, so she quickly replies to him by saying that she was just amazed by the flowers that bloom from weed, and there are so many to look at. Listening to her being all excited about getting to look flowers makes him express his disappointment that she is lucky right now to be able to view such flowers, considering she has to work all day due to the lack of workers in the house. But she immediately reassures her that she does not mind that, as she is his loyal servant. He ignores what she just said, and continues to rant about how he got to know that Lorna likes staying out in the gardens more than she likes serving him. So she jumps at him in frustration as she reminds him that she does not find it boring at all, and says that she was just curious about the flowers, not meaning anything by it. She scolds him that if he causes any misunderstanding, she will be punished for it, which makes him let out a little chuckle in relief over understanding her feelings, and asks if she wants to go somewhere else now. So she tells him that she will go wherever Elaine wants, even though she is clearly leading the way. He reminds her that since he is unable to see, it is just better to go where she wants and listen to what she has to say to describe what she sees. So she thinks about it, and with a glow like the moonlight on her face, suggests that they go to the Trable Park. He promises her that he will take her there tomorrow, which makes her feel delighted as she thanks him for accepting her request, when in reality, she chose that place because it is a famous place near the Count's palace, and that is where Karina lives, so if they manage to take the right steps, Elaine and her can finally meet up. However, as she moves ahead, Elaine calls out her name. She stops and turns around towards him, and then he tells her that this is actually the first time that he has had a walk, and a lady was accompanying him. The flowers around them bloom brighter than ever, as she expresses her surprise, asking if he is telling the truth. He then takes a few steps towards her and gives her his hand, suggesting that they should practice their walk for tomorrow, as they will be going to a place that will be crowded by people, making Lorna see him in a very charming light. Seeing how he is offering to practice with her, personally, Lorna finds it difficult to believe, so he reassures her by telling her that he does not want unnecessary attention on the two of them, so he needs to learn how to make the walk look natural. She takes his hand and starts their practice, only to make it seem like more uncomfortable than before, because Elaine has avoided socializing for so long that he is incapable of walking together with someone else. She stops Elaine for a moment and changes the position of their arms, suggesting that this position looks more natural to walk in because it makes up for Elaine's tall height and big strides, though she wonders if this is uncomfortable for him. Elaine, who allegedly can see, is surprised by her suggestion even before she wraps her hand around his arm. But when she tries to pull it away, he holds her hand, telling her that this feels more comfortable to him, with a smile on his face. After they settle on the hand placement, they slowly practice the walking speed to look more natural. The next day, Bernard presents Lorna with an excessive amount of sweets and utilities, because he thinks that it is important for her and the Duke to be prepared for everything, as he is leaving the house for 2 whole days, along with some knights as guard, though Elaine pops up from behind him, emitting a menacing aura, ordering Bernard to keep everyone back at the mansion, and he and Lorna will go alone. Bernard complains about why his mind changed, as he always wanted to see the Duke walk under the sun, seeing how he always was holed up in his room, which pisses Elaine off as he commands him to stop. Lorna suggests that they can have the guards and the servants walk behind the two of them with some distance in between, when he raises concern that he does not want unnecessary attention on him, and that only she and him will walk and eat together, though her real concern is that she will not be able to meet Karina if she goes alone. Elaine then grants permission to the servants that they can join them, which makes Bernard jump from joy. Dressed beautifully, both Laron and Elaine get ready to walk around the park, but not before he orders them to leave, as the knights promise to be at a distance. They both sit near the pond in the park, on a picnic mat with their food items in a basket, talking about how hot the weather is, even though it is spring, so she offers to fan him, but he refuses that. Lorna thinks about how good of a day this has been so far, despite the fact that she did not find Karina here, and wonders if something nice is going to happen. But then suddenly, an unusually large bee comes near Elaine's face, which makes her stand up and ready to smack it out, because the bee is big enough to render someone unconscious if stung. However, Elaine starts to wave around, trying to turn the bee away, but Lorna gets scared that it might get provoked, so she immediately grabs her fan and hits the bee, knocking it over to someone else's mat, which scares them as they suddenly have to deal with it. As she tries to find her balance, she apologizes to Elaine for scaring him like that, as he sits there surprised, with his hairstyle changed due to the wind pressure she generated whilst attacking the bed. However, she is unable to get her feet to stabilize in time, and tumbles upon the mat, falling straight onto Elaine. As she comes back to her sense, she gets up quickly and apologizes for falling onto him, as she was only trying to swat the bee away. But the first thing Elaine asks her is if she is okay, making her blush as she definitely finds it a loving act, but stands up quickly to try and hide that she is fully red right now, and shouts that she is totally fine. She starts to throw a fit about the bee trying to hurt her Elaine, but she is really thinking about her reaction earlier, seeing his face, which she thinks is weird as he is the main character. She then nervously offers him the lunch that Bernard has prepared for them, and then they enjoy a pleasant lunch throughout their day, with Elaine finding it uncomfortable to be eating on the ground. In the evening, at the Harrington estate, Lorna directly goes to Karina's room and asks the servant if she is able to meet her. After introducing who she is, she came to meet Karina so late because Elaine would just not leave her side, like a child sticks to his mother. And now that she is finally here, she worries that her meeting with Karina might not be possible because she is unable to confirm her identity. Another old man comes out of the door to greet Lorna and confirms her reason for meeting with Karina, so she lies to him, saying that she owed her big time, and so even Karina would be happy to see her. The old man tells her that she cannot meet with Karina right now, as she is not in the mansion, so Lorna is left disappointed again, as she asks the old man about where she could be right now, which is when the old man tells her that Karina is currently at the Imperial Palace. There she stood, with a man of great status, the Imperial Crown Prince, Sable Otter Constant, himself, as they view the beautiful flowers at the garden. Sable turns around the compliment about the flowers towards Karina, as she calls him out for saying such things so casually, given his status, asking if he says the same things to other ladies as well. He holds her hand and tells her that he used to do so, which makes Karina annoyed, so he asks her to not make such an unpleasant expression, and kisses her hand, as he explains to her that he said these things before to others out of courtesy, because he had to. But the compliments he just gave to Karina is a sincere one, leaving her pleasantly surprised.